Rafi Warren says, hey, Xisuma, just an idea to talk about the whole GameStop thingy going on right now. Don't know how much knowledge you got of economics, and if you want to talk about it, but I'd love to hear. But if you want to, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. I'll be happy to give my opinion on the whole GameStop thing. I've been following it closely. Closely being a loose term, I guess. I can't say exactly how closely I've been following it. Because it's made me really aware of how little I understand all of this stuff. So, you never know if you're like listening to an expert or not, I guess, is one of those things. Here's a disclaimer alert. I ain't no expert. I really don't know a lot about this stuff, but I've been following it closely. I've been trying to understand what's going on from like a legal perspective, and also understanding what's going on from an emotional perspective, because clearly this is like kind of like a bit of a rebellious event. David versus Goliath. It reminds me a lot of the financial crash of 2008 as well. It feels like a lot of that conversation is resurfacing again, because this is like bankers and financial institutions. They have their ways of making money with this stocks and shares system that not a lot of us really understand. They make billions off of it, and then all of a sudden, regular people are just fighting against them and causing some big headaches in that world. We need some more torches here. David won so hard, says this guy. I wouldn't say David won. I would say let's follow this closely and see what happens, because this is far from over. This is not like the story is just beginning, quite likely. Okay, to bring anyone up to speed who don't know what we're talking about, GameStop stock has sort of gone through the roof, and it's kind of happened through a sort of movement in Reddit called Wall Street Bets. So this is a place where people discuss stocks and shares, selling and trading them, all that kind of stuff. And people there just decided to buy this stock to mess with people who do what are called shorts. And I've been trying to understand what shorts are. And I understand it, but there's like one part of it that kind of rattles my brain a little bit. So the idea of shorting stock is that you sort of bet that the price is going to go down. So you borrow and sell shares. This is where it's like, this is where you like need some numbers on the screen, right? But let's say you borrow shares and sell them for, let's say the price of the share is 100. So you borrow and sell it at 100, but you don't have to pay for what you borrowed until later. So if the share's price drops, and then you only have to pay 70, you've made 30 profit, right? Does that make sense to everyone? You borrow it to sell it, you sell it at the current price. If the price goes down, you repay it at the price in the future where it's lower. What I want to know is like who's on the receiving end of that, because that's the way these big hedge funds make lots of money. They short stock and then they, make billions. But like, where does that come from is what I've been thinking. Where does that, who pays that? Like, where is that value being derived from if they're not paying for it initially? And then, who are they loaning it from? It feels like there are losers in this equation, and it's not obvious where the losers are. Short is where you borrow stock from a broker and then sell it, and you make it go down, then buy it again, and the returns to the broker and save the difference. That sounds slightly different to how I've heard it explained, but obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of it. Oh, it comes from all the other people exchanging the same products, says Samuth. Yeah, let's face it, it's a big and confusing place. So anyway, you got these hedge funds owned by billionaires that, have people shorting stock to make lots of money. And because, people sort of joined in this, like, we're going to mess with you sort of approach to this, they all brought in on this GameStop. There's a few other stocks alongside it as well. And they've cost these hedge funds billions of dollars by interfering with their strategy. And so it's become a bit of a David and Goliath. People are like, regular people are buying in on this because it's a way to kind of stick it to these big hedge funds that people generally don't like. And again, that kind of harpens back to 2008 and the stock crash there. It made a lot of people more aware of how financial institutions are doing a lot of stuff that seems fishy to the normal person, you know? All this shorting of stock and making billions out of nothing. It's a very, like, that's the very emotional side of it, right? So, like, what's the legal side of it? I've been thinking. And bear in mind, like, legality isn't always morality. It's just an institution, often there to serve the interests that influence it. And we all know that Wall Street will influence legislation and law and legal systems to gain an upper hand. This is like again, a sort of common narrative that's been created since 2008 that people kind of understand that happens. So, you know, I wondered, is this actually illegal? And I have been rummaging around, reading a few things, watching some videos, and for the most part, it seems like it's probably not illegal. Inside trading is something that you're not supposed to do, which is to have insider knowledge about something that is going to then shift the price of shares. Like if you, I think, for example, let's say you had inside knowledge that Elon Musk was just going to retire tomorrow and give up all his ambitions, right? You'd probably expect that means that Tesla stock is going to go down. So if you were like betting on Tesla stock going down because you had this information, I believe that counts as insider trading. But then, you know, wouldn't all of your buying decisions be based on some sort of information? Like maybe a company has announced a new product or whatever. I don't know where the line is for it being insider trading or not. But that is one of those things we've all heard of and know to be illegal. This probably isn't insider trading. What it could be is some form of, like, it could be framed as deliberate manipulation. But then a lot of people perceive as what hedge funds do with stock to make money as being market manipulation as well. So I couldn't really find like a definition of what's happening that relates to a legal position to sort of explain what it is in terms of a legal thing, because it's all right to know where you stand morally, but I think you have to respect the legal system to some extent and realize that, like, if this were an illegal activity that everyone was sort of participating in together, you know, maybe it would mean we have to rethink laws and change them. But you do need to have, I believe, a system of law to be respected at some level. And if it's not doing right, then it needs to be changed. But yeah, I always want to separate that because people get really heated and emotional over what's happening, I've noticed. Insider trading pertains to privileged information, says Amastelis alias. Yeah, a lot of things revolving around this, though. Like they get chalked up to grey areas. Like even that sounds like a fuzzy grey area. Now you got to find what privileged information is. I mean, maybe they've got a clear way of defining that, but again, so many things come with like grey fuzzy boundaries. So yeah, I've been trying to figure out, like, is it legal or is it not? And to be fair, you know, I'm not a legal expert. I'm just someone trying to learn stuff. You can't take what I say as being truth, if truth is a thing. It doesn't look like what's happening is illegal. It really doesn't. But the financial institutions are already hitting out and talking about regulations, and they never want to be regulated. The free market system, you know, three is a word, but it's sort of not. Like, it's, I always find freedom to be such a trivial thing. To call it a free market, it still has rules and regulations and things about it that make it seem not so free, right? If it were free, wouldn't it be just free for anyone to do anything with it, to manipulate it, to do all these shady tactics that people suspect of these big hedge funds, you know, manipulating markets, short selling stock to make tons of profit? It doesn't look like what's happening is illegal, but the financial institutions are already hitting back because all this volatility and uncertainty that regular people have been able to create against the hedge funds are you know, destabilizing their ability to make these massive profits. And so they're asking for legislation and regulations and law to try and stop what's currently happening. So they are trying to protect their interests. It's never really about wrong and right. It's usually about economic and financial motives and protecting interests. Empress Sock says, oh no, the common people found out how to prevent the rich getting richer. How terrible. Yeah, well, that's the emotional side of it, right? So earlier someone said David won, right? David versus Goliath. The regular people are fighting back against Wall Street. Well, this is like far from over, is what I was saying earlier. This is just an unfolding story that has the potential to just keep getting bigger and bigger. Where it will end up, I ain't got a clue. Like, this is like utterly fascinating, I think. It could be that all of this gets shut down through regulation and whatnot, or it could be an ongoing battle. It's hard to know. It's hard to know where it's all going to go. And there could be some big consequences to this as well, People deliberately, well, let's reword that. Like, the current type of interference that's taking place, that could have some ramifications that are unforeseen at this point in time. Like, this sort of behavior, people buying stock to mess with hedge funds, is like new. It's completely new to the market system. So that means that, the future is kind of undetermined, and this could all go anywhere. It could, I don't know, this might sound a bit far-fetched, but it could lead to some sort of big shockwave. I don't know, a financial crash of some sort. Oh my goodness me. Now I'm down here. Squish Lips says, love Gen Z messing with older generations. I don't like to frame it like that. I don't like to put people into groups here. But, there are hedge funds. There are people who play in markets. Like, not all of them are evil. Not all of them are bad. Some of them appear to be bad. Like, I don't like putting people into groups. Like, why make it a generational thing all of a sudden, right? Like, there are people of different economic opportunity in all age groups. And just throwing people into a box and making it us versus them, I just find that dangerous, like a dangerous way to think. Are you putting your own parents in that box? Like, you got to think it through a bit. I just think it's not smart to chalk this down to like one group versus the other. Big time traders siphon money off society without adding any value, says Laser. It certainly seems like that's what they do, right? Point being, though, is that not everyone on the marketplace is doing that, right? Like, some people invest. Investing in stocks and shares is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Years ago, things like Netflix came along, and I was like, this is blatantly something like that you should invest in, because the stock price is just going to go up over time. And things like Tesla I've been following for years, thinking I should do this. It's kind of ironic, because the last couple of weeks, I put it on my note list, things to do. I was like, let's actually get around to like looking how you invest in stocks and shares, and then put down an investment, right? And then this story breaks open with the GameStop thing. And like, literally the day that I go to sign up and start doing the, putting some money into shares or whatever, they shut down people signing up for it because of all that's going on. And so, yeah, I was going to, put a little bit of money into some stocks, hoping that they would grow over time. The stock market tends to grow over time. And so it's seen as a good idea to invest. It can be risky. One of the things I was not interested in doing is daytime trading or, trying to make a quick buck. It was literally just something to leave there, and then hopefully it would grow a bit over time. It's not something I've done before. But, like, it's an investment. Like, the idea is that you put some aside today and it will be worth more in the future. And, that might buy you a holiday or something. You never know. But yeah, the timing is I just find the timing hilarious. Like, I finally get around to doing this thing, and then it's like, oh. And a lot of the stocks that I was going to invest in, like Tesla, I want to invest in, like, spread it out. That's a common strategy I've read. You spread out your investments so that it's not all in one place. It's more volatile if it's in one place. I was looking at Tesla. I was looking at like solar panel, green energy companies, that sort of thing. Like, why not invest green? I mean, if you believe in climate change and believe that these things are part of the solution, it's kind of like If it fails, then we're probably in a bad spot anyway. And if not, and we found another way through this situation, then maybe it's not such a bad thing. Anyway, that was just kind of my thinking on why it would be wise to invest in green energy. Because if you lose and the planet loses, what's your money worth? If you lose and we survive, we found another way, it turned out not to be a problem, then all right, the planet isn't doomed. And if it turns out to be exactly what we need, then you've helped invest in something that's important for the development of, our species and surviving on this planet and the environment. So it seemed like a pretty like easy way to get into doing this, I guess. A pretty easy reason for investing in that. X, I invest indexes through my bank. You don't need a platform like Robinhood. Well, Robinhood is the one of the big trading things that has opened up trading to the regular people, and they shut down trading because of the whole GameStop thing, and that's caused a big backlash. I didn't know about them. It was a different trading platform I was looking at, but they're part of this like app-oriented trading system. The reason that I was attracted to those is because of fees. Now, if you're investing long term, I guess the fees like being bigger are not so much of a problem. But if you're investing short term, you kind of want smaller fees. But I'm not doing that. I want to invest sort of long term, right? So I was still drawn to the fact that they had smaller fees because it's something like 65p a transaction. Whereas if you go with a more traditional trading system, they charge like £10 for a transaction, which was just bonkers. What Robinhood did was actually illegal, though, says Mercurius. It could be illegal. It'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure that shutting off your service when you're a private company is an illegal thing to do. It's always important to separate the emotion from talking about legality, because the legal system is there to, serve particular interests and whatnot. And sometimes it will bend the arm or whatever. But, I don't know if it's illegal or not. And sometimes people just say that because it's more about like, I think this is wrong, as opposed to, is it actually illegal or not? They didn't shut all their services, though. They just stopped certain trades and started selling shares on their own without permission, so it's illegal. It does sound dodgy, but it's kind of like out of my league at this point. So yeah, we can just let that one be. Do these people who make billions off of the market deserve it? I think deserve is a interesting word to use, and the answer is most likely probably not. But got to take a bit more of a detailed look at the picture here. Like, people are sometimes wealthy because they've worked hard for it, and someone who's worked hard for wealth is probably not going to tell you they don't deserve it. You're going to feel like you put in hard work and got rewarded for it, right? People who inherit wealth, it's a little harder to empathize with inherited wealth, because that is the lottery of birth right there. I was born into a relatively stable environment, let's say, and the chances were it could have been so much worse just by the luck of the draw, right? I think society should be heading in a direction where it's trying to make that level playing field for everyone. But these people profiteering off of markets in this way, they don't appear to be contributing to that sort of objective, right? Like, it's hard to see how this contributes to society in that kind of way. This doesn't appear to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. This appears to be people using and leveraging their own wealth, their existing wealth, to get wealthier. In fact, during the pandemic, the wealth of billionaires has soared compared to the average person, and that's because when hard times are around, it tends not to affect the rich. Like when the prices go up and you're living paycheck to paycheck, it hurts you, right? When the prices double, it hurts you a lot. When you're like vastly wealthy, the doubling of prices for bread doesn't mean anything to you, So it's no surprise that a pandemic has hit the poorest people the hardest, because if you're wealthier, it's it's not the same, is it? Like you can already buy 1,000 loaves of bread, so if the price doubles, no sweat off your back. But yeah, like I said, some people have genuinely earned wealth. They've earned it by contributing to society, developing products, or creating things of value for one another. And then there is this more, and that's why I think people are so distrusting of these hedge funds and Wall Street, because that seems to be like a game. That seems to be like a game that's being played by people who already have vast amounts of wealth and are manipulating things to just increase it over and over again. Do you think the economy will crash once we've recovered from COVID? America has basically printed trillions of dollars, says Drew Dude. One thing that seems to be certain about our financial system that we have globally is that it crashes every so often, right? Like it's just a repeating pattern, and each time it crashes, similar signs are there leading up to it, and it seems to be again that when there's a crash, the wealthy people come out of it okay, and it just ends up hurting the poorest of people. If I could just throw out like a closing remark, perhaps on everything we discussed about GameStop, like when thinking about it, try and separate what's emotional in these contexts from what's actually legal. I think it's super important to do that, because like in this culture of people on Twitter slam dunking each other all the time, calling out hypocrisies, like so much of it is emotionally fueled that you kind of lose sight of truth. And the thing about truth is that it's actually far more elusive than you think. And truth is more of a concept than an actual thing. And truths that we believe in collectively or separate from one another, they're really different from person to person, and it's based on life experiences and perspectives. And so, yeah, I think it's just super important not to get too hammed into your own way of thinking and feeling about things, and try and understand and listen to other perspectives, because it's easy to get caught up in this whole, kicking it back to Wall Street kind of thing. But it could end up ugly. A lot of people are probably going to lose money who are participating. I hope if you're buying into this GameStop, I hope you understand you're probably throwing away whatever money you're putting into it at this point.